We'll call the Tree Advisory Commission meeting to order on Thursday, January 6th, 2022. We'll ask for a roll call. Welcome to our guests, advisors, chair, and commissioners. And we'll begin our roll call with Tom Schmitz.
Tom Schmitz, representing the Park and Recreation Department.
Joe Stadheim, city engineer.
Tom Romaine, Commissioner.
Greg Gearson, Commissioner.
Arlen Body, Commissioner.
Taylor Shank, Commissioner.
Jeff Huffman, Public Works Superintendent.
We'll seek approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. I'm seeking a motion to approve the September 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes as they are posted.
So moved.
We've got a motion,
Second.
second by Commissioner Schenk. All in favor? Say aye. Motion passes. And then we've got the November 2021 minutes yet to move and approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved. So item number 5, old business, our 2021 city reimbursement programs and budget update from the engineering department. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. Just a quick update on the 2021 Tree Commission budget. Budget amounts for the year was $11,809.65. Expenses for the year ending 2021 was $8,497.41 for an unused balance, $3,312.24. If the commission so chooses to request a carryover, now would be a time to discuss that amongst yourselves, and we can put that request in to the Finance and Administration Office when that process begins.
I'll look for a motion for that, to that effect, to carry that over and maybe earmark it for something within our budget or within our ongoing
Would make a
expenses.
motion to carry over the unused 2021 budget amounts and to place that in the diseased and boulevard tree program reimbursements, just anticipating that we will have requests for replanting trees lost to emerald ash borer.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. We have any discussion about that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. We'll go to that 5.2 then.
Mr. Chair, Commission members, before you, you can see the total 2022 budget that's been approved for the Tree Commission. One item to note there is there's not going to be a home show in 2022, so that $300 could be reallocated if you so wish into a different program to keep that total budgeted amount moving forward.
Do we need a motion for action on that to revise our budget, Tom?
I think it would be a good idea to go ahead if you're willing to do that at this meeting or the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to move the 300 from the home show into the Disease and Boulevard Tree Program.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on that seconded motion? We'll put that in that same, it would be in that same category, diseased trees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion then passes, and we'll move that $300 into the Diseased Boulevard Tree Program, or the Diseased Tree allocation for EAB. So that keeps our budget total the same. 5.3, PUC update. Do we have anything?
There was, Chair, an email that came out today from Derek Nelson. Does anyone recall what was in that email?
He had information about some of the proposed, and maybe Jordy could answer this from, as a guest. He had some information there, and one of them was to reestablish our Tree City designation. And that was a question that I was going to have. We do the annual Arbor Day redesignation, and we keep that up to date. What's involved with the Tree City and who's responsible for that? Does that come out of Tom? Does that come out of your Park and Rec work?
The Tree City USA program is one that our department, the Park and Rec Department, does the annual data input on the Arbor Day Foundation website. So that will continue.
So that is the same one.
Tree City USA is that program.
Okay.
I'm just trying to pull up Derek's email. Oh, let's see, I gotta go to laptop. Okay. Because he's working on green step cities. Which is a different program. There you have it. 29 best practices. I don't know if Jordy, you want to speak to this energy awareness? Sure, come on up here. I see Derek is referring to the Energy Awareness Commission. Jordy?
Jordy Veit, 1400 North Garden Street, New Ulm, Minnesota, Energy Awareness Commission. Yeah, so as part of the Energy Awareness Commission is what we're doing is earlier, to be back in 2021, the city passed a resolution to become a green step city. And within that, there are optional and voluntarily practices within that, up to, I believe, 29 categories, some of which we have already submitted and approved. And some of those potentially deal with stuff the Tree Commission deals with, such as the Tree City USA program. So I believe that's what he is referring to as far as are we a Tree City USA? And there are also best practices steps, such as I think one of the things is Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan, which I believe the city has already done as well. So those are the types of things I think we'll be talking about this one at our meeting on Tuesday specifically, but I'm sure you'll hear more about it. I guess if you have specific questions, I can try to answer that. But I can try to pull this one up once and see what he was specifically referring to. But they're voluntarily, if they're like something that you want to do but costs money and money's not available, they're just totally voluntarily. So it's not, that's a requirement, so.
Yep. Thank you, Jordy.
Yep.
And we'll see what the Energy Commission has on their kind of list.
Yes, and I
As we
think
move forward.
between now and our next Tree Advisory Commission meeting, we'll contact Derek Nelson at the PUC and get more information on the green step cities and maybe somewhat get involved with some of the tree initiatives in that green step program.
Jordy, more to add?
Yeah, just one quick comment. If you do go to the website for Green Step Cities, you can find the best practices listed on there. You can actually find the New Ulm ones as well that we have already completed. But if you're looking for examples, that type of stuff, that's there as well for everything, so.
Tom, do you know the timeline on this for the green steps?
I do not.
Oh, should have asked Jordy.
That's okay. There is not necessarily a timeline. It's just kind of as you go, so as time permits, so.
Thanks for that information. The next one is the 5.4 Emerald Ash Borer or EAB update from John or Joe or others. Joe?
Mr. Chair, Commission members, just for your information, we do have a contract award pending. We received one bid for the EAB removals before the end of the year. One bid from Tree Story, it's a contractor up in the cities. Their bid amounts for the 315 trees was $66,150, or approximately $210 per tree. So that contract award is pending. Most likely will go to City Council at their next meeting in a couple of weeks. The actual number of trees removed will depend on the bid price we get for the planting of the new trees under that $100,000 grant. And just for your information, this grant is the kind of a continuation, except it's a new grant, but the same process as our last grant, where the street department will match with in-kind stump grinding. So the contractor is anticipating 1 week worth of work. So they're going to move pretty quickly once they get into town, and yeah, we're excited to take on this next step. So that's the information I have at this time.
Thank you. Our next item is the utility billing information inserts. And the next one is set to be, by my memory, April for the big tree announcement, correct?
Yep, I think you missed the Buckthorn update.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Let's do 5.5.
Sorry, 5.5.
The only Buckthorn update I have from the Park and Recreation Department is that there has been no significant activity that the department has been involved with since our last Tree Advisory Commission meeting in November related to Buckthorn. But I don't know if Jordy or Joe have any update at all related to Buckthorn?
I don't have anything related to the buckthorn other than the covered up program. We're just obviously with winter, not much going on with that, so we're in planning phase for that. We just as a program complete the survey in December. It was slated to end in 2022 for data collection. So they are looking to extend that for those who want to take that out longer. They're also looking at adding in some other possible things to look at, such as soil types, earthworms, other vegetation that's already present on the site to make some comparisons. But otherwise, other than that, there's not much going on until probably March when we start the site cleanup, update flags that need to be, and then once we get into the growing season, cutting back the non-test buckthorn, cleaning out other invasives on the plot, and then data collection again in the summer. So if you have any questions, let me know. This is for the plot down by the bike trail, kind of down by Ridgeway Bike Trail area on the south end there. Yep.
And this program's for sure through 2022.
Yes, it is for sure through 2022. They have, it's at least some, to a certain extent, interest in continuing it. So I think the continuation is probably on funding, and if they have a decent amount of people who are willing to continue it, and then they will continue that on to do the same measurements, maybe adding in other stuff as well that people are interested in taking a look at.
Thank you, Jordy.
Other than that, Chair and members, the Park and Recreation Department still has weed wrenches available for loan and will continue that program in perpetuity. Also, we are supporting Ellen Van Cura and her efforts with her group on buckthorn eradication. So it still continues to be an ongoing program in our community, and a very valuable resource that Ellen's providing our community.
All right, thank you, Tom. Now to the correct 5.6, utility billing inserts. We're up for April, I believe, and that's the tree contest
Yes, I think normally we'd like to put the big tree contest on one side of that sheet of paper. And so the other side of that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is available for topics that the Tree Advisory Commission would like to have placed on that. And, you know, over the next month or so, it'd be a great time to start putting that together.
Okay, and I volunteered to work on that with Derek, so we'll continue that process. 5.7 is that big tree, and the 2021 winner listed. 2022 species is hickory.
Yeah, so no action necessary here. You've already chosen this year's species. But the actual form, last year's form is in the packet. So over the next month or so, if you have any suggested edits to that form, I can work with the engineering department. Jeff Anderson has normally helped put this together, so we'll put together a hickory flyer and send it out to the commission for input so that we can get this thing printed up in the next month or two.
Okay. 5.8, the invasive species management on city administered lands proposal. And this came from Tom Romaine, our guest Joe Gartner today, and Ellen Vancouver. And Joe has volunteered to give us some information today.
Okay, my name is Joe Gartner. I volunteer for the New Ulm Pollinator Park on North Broadway, and we've got a couple other sites too that we're working on. One is the skate park has a wetland area that we're going to try to designate as a pollinator park, and then South Market Park on South Market. But this is only about the pollinator park and adjoining territory. It doesn't concern any other areas of New Ulm. And so number one on my list that you got, and hopefully I got glasses so I can see what I'm doing here. That area has that big wet impoundment area. It's not the pollinator park, but it's off a ways. There's a metal shelter and a pretty good number of high power or big power line poles that go through the area. And so what happened is when that was all developed, if you go back and you look at maps, overhead maps, there weren't a whole lot of trees in some of those areas. There was a big shelter built through there, and the rest of it, I don't know what it was originally. But in just the few years that I've been here in New Ulm and retired for, I think, 10 years now, I've noticed a tremendous growth of trees coming up. And they're not all they're not all the Siberian elm, but it's a big problem. Those shelter belt trees are some of them are Siberian elm. They spread like mad. I worked at an Audubon sanctuary up by Warren, Minnesota, and it was planted to CRP, and we were supposed to keep it grass, so we mowed it and all that. But the owner wanted to get into tree planting programs. So what did he plant? He planted Siberian elm. And it only took a few years. Once they got up to this height, they were dropping seeds all over. So what we're doing in the pollinator park, a few volunteers, is we're cutting them off and stump treating them. And so I would really like the city have, I went onto the website, the city website, and I saw all the good stuff you have about tree planting on the boulevards, and all that. And maybe I don't find it, but I think New Ulm needs a list of invasive trees, shrubs, plants, and anything else. And I know everybody knows about the emerald ash borer and buckthorn and maybe garlic mustard, but I hate to say this, there's a heck of a lot more than that, and they're not getting any better. There's some coming this way that are much worse than what we've got. So that's my thing on number one. I just wanted to mention about the Siberian elm. I don't know if I've seen it in a lot of New Ulm, but out in that area, it's pretty prevalent. And of course, the people who control the water retention thing, they're mowing and doing stuff to not have that, reseed or take off. Number two, this is a short piece east of the pollinator park, down below where the bike trail is, and there's about 10 or 12 trees planted in prairie. And when I saw that, I thought, I wish I could have said something about it earlier, because it's too bad they were planted there, because they don't really belong there. That's prairie. A catalpa, a ginkgo doesn't belong on the prairie. But wouldn't you know it, a buck came along and decided what might be a good planting, what wouldn't be. So here's some tree. The trees got rubbed pretty badly by bucks, and so most of them are dead. And so at this point, I'd say, trees are wonderful, 99.9%. Hey, that's great. But I'm not sure where we are down here. Yeah, okay, so this is the pollinator part. And this is that little area that was planted in the prairie at the time of the bike trail, I guess. And then there's some native prairie in here, too. Not a good area for trees. Especially, there are some oak and some aspen. Those are kind of prairie trees. But the ginkgo and the catalpa, and I'd worry about the catalpa because I have catalpas in my neighborhood, and we have seedlings all over from them, and other stuff, of course, too. So I guess I don't know who to contact. Who do I go to try to voice an opinion on that?
You're here.
Okay. Well, I'd say, those that are, especially those that die, don't replant. And if they survive, well, probably cage them because the deer are going to rub them. And I think one of the reasons they got into that is if you notice my colored picture over by the buck, it's mowed right up to those trees. And the deer probably have followed that mowed edge right along and say, this is nice, this is really handy, I don't have to get into the grass. Because in the grassland area, I don't remember seeing any trees that were rubbed. And there's some really nice ones there that bucks would like. So that's the second one. Number 3, not every place needs trees. Well, that's kind of the same thing, I would really like to see this little chunk of land in here become more than just, first of all, the pollinator park is just here, but the city owns this other land. And it'd be nice to say, well, we're going to manage this piece for prairie. That's what New Ulm was at one time, right here. It had forest, but it had mostly prairie and savanna. And it's the only site that currently has any acreage of prairie in New Ulm, not including the park, So just to make you aware of that, that's something that the pollinator park people are going to promote this year. And then number 4, the jumping worms. Bad, real bad. And here's the problem. They've pretty much done studies that when an invasive species show up, here's the invasive species on the 0 line. It starts infecting an area, and then somewhere up here, people start noticing it. And they say, we should do something about this. But guess what? The deadline's already been lost, And once you get to a certain point, it's going to be difficult. And you can look around town and see, buckthorn, if that could have been stopped earlier, or garlic mustard, or I don't know what else, but other stuff. And so this is bad because this is not, garlic mustard likes woodland, buckthorn kind of like that too, because, the birds roost in the trees and the berries get dropped from when they poop. And jumping worms are bad. If you buy mulch, if you move dirt, if you buy potted plants, right now, maybe it'd be okay. But what they found in the cities is when people have bought those from other states and they got mulch, like from the mulch suppliers that have it all over the country, that it's been a big problem. And moving dirt, and just think of all the dirt that gets moved. I mean, you think of worms as being harmless and that, but these are nasty. And so I would recommend, being up to date and, making sure people know about them. And of all the invasives I've heard about, I know the emerald ash borer, that's bad. That's only ash trees, though. This is like any area of ground. In the woods, nope, they don't care. They're in the woods, they'll be there, they like that. In turf, they like it. In gardens, any area that worms would live in. So just a little note of concern there. And that's all I got.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, Joe.
thank you too.
We'll consider that, maybe the jumping worms and then maybe the Siberian elm, those might be useful for our information sheets as we go out.
It might be nice to have, what don't you want in town? And why? I didn't see that on the website.
Okay, under number 6, new business, we already,
Wait a minute. We haven't talked about the invasive species management.
oh, the proposal, I'm sorry. I'm trying to move along here.
I understand. I will be brief, but
I had it up on my screen, now Tom's got it up on this one, thank you.
earlier, excuse me. In early December, Ellen and I and Tom and Jeff and John Nisley met to talk about the invasive species management proposal that we've been kicking around for several meetings. And John kind of asked us in chapter 10.2, landscaping and screening in the proposed
Zoning ordinance.
what was
Zoning ordinance?
the
Yep.
zoning ordinance, yep. And so we had a discussion about that, and we recommended to John that the landscaping and screening should reference the list of invasive plants and how to identify and manage them on the DNR website, and to also reference the Minnesota noxious weed list, which is produced by the Department of Agriculture, and as the benchmark for things that should not be planted in the city of New Ulm. And the other thing that we would keep open is if there was ever a Brown County noxious weed list, the ordinance should reference that as well, and that would keep us from having to define noxious weeds every time that the DNR or the MDA lists would change. And we also suggested that one tree that's not on either of those lists is a tree called the Royal Polonia. Is a real nasty tree. I've seen it planted in Wisconsin. I don't know of any in New Ulm right now, but it's a very invasive species. And then we discussed the invasive species management proposal for the city of New Ulm, and we got down into tactics, and that defining vegetation species deemed to be invasive in the city of New Ulm was what we discussed with John. And then the second item of determining which city of New Ulm entities administer land and delineate those lands. That was our next step. And probably need the commission to pass a motion saying that, yes, we're going to do this, or we're not, and then we can probably try to work up something with the involved city departments that, because right now, I don't think the commission has an idea of what departments in the city administer lands and where they are and what the vegetation conditions are on those lands. So, and then steps 3, 4, 5, and 6 depend on what we find out in step number 2. And I think perhaps that John Nisley would be a good contact for us, because a lot of what we can find out through the geographic information systems would be enable us to figure out what departments administer land, where it is, and what the vegetation conditions are on them, grossly, without having to visit the site. So that's my recommendation. We decide whether we want to move ahead with this or just not. So, discussions from the commissioners, or
Well, you can make a motion and then we can.
I would make a
look for
motion
discussion.
that we, the commission work with John Nisley to figure out what entities in the city administer land and delineate those and try to get a gross idea of what the vegetation conditions are on them, would be our next step.
Yeah, I'll second that motion that we should go ahead with that.
We got a motion and a second. We have some discussion.
Not yet. I think this is a good first step.
Brandon, I think utilizing John in his role simplifies it for us. So I'll look for passage of it. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So we'll work on that determination, really, of those land entities. Thank you, Tom. Back to our agenda, number 6.1, the budget carryover we had addressed already and moved forward on it. Any other new business? Seeing none, I'll remind you the dates of this year's meetings, January 6th today, and then March 3rd, May 5th, July 7th, September 1, November 3rd, here. And that push for agenda items to that director. With no further business, I declare the meeting adjourned.